There's an old joke in aviation. It goes, how do you make a small fortune running an airline? And the answer is, you start with a large one. Meet Bryce. Bryce just sold his company. Bryce is rich now, and Bryce has decided that what he wants more than anything is to own an airline. Because think about it. Your own planes, your name on the tail, thousands of people paying you to fly around. It's the coolest, most baller business a man could own. Bryce goes, airlines move millions of people. They charge for everything, the bag, the seat, the little snack. It's gotta be a gold mine. So Bryce sets out to start an airline. And Bryce had a problem. Bryce's problem is that he just aimed his fresh new fortune directly at the single most reliable money shredder in the entire economy. A business so brutal that Canada has a literal graveyard full of the ones who tried before him. Let me show you the true cost of owning an airline in Canada. So let's start with Bryce's fantasy. Bryce goes, okay, I fly a plane full of, say, 200 people across the country. Everybody paid a few $100 for their ticket. That's real money. Times a bunch of flights a day, I'm swimming in it. And this old airline guy named Hank. Hank has personally survived 3 airline bankruptcies. Hank has the 1,000-yard stare. Hank just goes, sit down, son. Hank goes, do you want to know what an actual airline makes on that plane full of 200 people? Bryce goes, millions? Hank goes, on a good year, across the whole industry, an airline makes a profit of about $7 per passenger. Bryce goes, 7,000? Hank goes, $7. Bryce goes, per plane? Hank goes, per person. So your plane of 200 people, best case, clears you about the price of a couple video games. Bryce goes, that can't be right. Hank goes, the head of the whole global airline industry said it himself. The profit per passenger won't even buy you a hot dog at the ballpark. That's the business you just fell in love with. Razor thin, the thinnest margins of almost any industry on earth. And now here's where it starts to get wicked. Hank goes, and that's $7? That's if everything goes right. Let me show you what's trying to eat it. Number 1, fuel. Jet fuel is somewhere around a quarter to a third of your entire cost of running the airline. And here's the kick in the teeth. You don't control the price. It moves on wars, on oil markets, on stuff happening on the other side of the planet. Hank goes, one bad fuel spike, prices jump overnight, and your $7 a passenger doesn't just shrink, it goes negative. Now you're losing money on every single seat. And you can't just raise ticket prices tomorrow, because you sold half those tickets months ago. Bryce goes, so my highest cost is a thing I can't predict or control? Hank goes, welcome to airlines. And Hank's just getting warmed up. Hank goes, number 2, the planes. Bryce, how you planning to get planes? Bryce goes, I'll buy some. Hank goes, okay, a single one of the normal narrow-body jets, the kind everybody flies, that's around $55 million each. Bryce goes, I'll lease them then. Hank goes, smart. That's about $400,000 a month per plane to rent. And Bryce, here's the thing about that plane. It costs you that whether it's packed full or flying empty. A plane sitting on the ground makes $0, but still costs you a fortune every hour. So you have to keep them in the air, constantly, jammed full of people. Hank goes, you know how full you gotta fly just to break even? Not profit, just to not lose money? You gotta fill about 8 out of every 10 seats, every flight, all year. Those other 2 empty seats are flying for free, and they're eating your lunch. And Bryce goes, okay, but at least once the plane lands, I'm good. And Hank starts laughing, that hollow bankruptcy laugh. Hank goes, oh, landing. Landing costs money too. See, this is Canada, and Canada runs what they call a user pay system, which is a polite way of saying they charge you for everything that isn't the sky itself. Hank goes, you land a jet at Toronto Pearson? That's around $1,500 just to let your wheels touch the runway, one time. Then there's a fee for every single passenger who walks through that airport. Then, and this is real, a fee for every minute your plane sits parked at the gate. Bryce goes, they charge me by the minute to park? Hank goes, by the minute. And then there's the air navigation fees to the company that runs the airspace, and the security charge on every ticket, and the airport improvement fee, and on and on. Hank goes, that's why Canada is one of the most expensive countries on Earth to run an airline. Every takeoff and landing, you're paying tolls before you've sold a single peanut. Now there's something I forgot to tell you, and this is the one that actually kills the new guys. Hank goes, Bryce, who do you think you're competing against? Bryce goes, everybody. Hank goes, no, 2 companies,
Air Canada and WebJet. Between them, they control most of the sky in this country, well over half, and at a lot of airports, way more. It's basically a duopoly. Bryce goes, good, so there's room for a scrappy little third guy like me. And Hank's face just goes dark. Hank goes, son, let me tell you what happens to the scrappy little third guy. The second you launch and start selling cheap tickets on a route, the big two will look at your exact route, and they will drop their prices below what it costs them on purpose, just on your routes, and they can afford to bleed on a few routes because they've got hundreds of others making money. You can't. So you bleed alone until you run out of cash and you die. Bryce goes, that sounds illegal. Hank goes, it's Tuesday. That's exactly what happened to Lynx Air, gone in 2024, and Jetsco, and Roots Air, and Canada 3000, and Canadian Airlines, and a whole graveyard of dreamers who thought they'd be the third guy. Hank goes, the duopoly doesn't beat you, it just outlasts you, because it's got deeper pockets, and it is very, very patient. And here's the final trap, the one that means Bryce can't even fight back properly. Bryce goes, fine, I'll just raise a mountain of money from investors so I can survive the price war. And Hank goes, from who? Bryce goes, anybody, global investors, the deep-pocketed money. Hank goes, can't. In Canada, there's a law. A Canadian airline has to stay Canadian. Foreigners together can't own more than 49% of your airline, and no single foreign investor can own more than 25%. Bryce goes, so I can't just go get a giant foreign backer to fund my war chest. Hank goes, nope. The exact money you'd need to survive a fight with the duopoly, the law says you can only have so much of it. Even the government's own competition watchdog came out and said these ownership rules are strangling new airlines, cutting them off from the money they need to survive. Bryce goes, so the game is fight two giants who lose money on purpose to kill me with one hand tied behind my back on funding? Hank goes, now you're finally getting it. Oh, and Hank throws in the last one almost as an afterthought. Hank goes, and your staff, your pilots, your flight attendants, your mechanics, they're unionized, and they should be. It's skilled, dangerous work, but it means when their contract's up, they can strike. And a strike doesn't slow your airline down, it stops it, dead. Every plane on the ground, no revenue, while the meter on all those leases and fees keeps running. Bryce goes, so my whole company can be switched off by a labor dispute? Hank goes, ask Air Canada about the summer of 2025. Every one of these things, the fuel, the planes, the fees, the duopoly, the funding cap, the unions, any one of them can sink you, and you're juggling all of them at once for $7 a passenger. So let's do the honest math, not the baller fantasy. Bryce wanted his name on the tail and a gold mine in the sky. Reality, he makes maybe the price of a sandwich per passenger, and only if he fills 8 of 10 seats every flight. His single biggest cost, fuel, is a wild card he can't control. Every plane is $55 million, or 400 grand a month whether it flies full or empty. He pays a toll every time he touches the ground. He's up against two giants who lose money on purpose just to strangle him. And the one thing that could save him, a giant pile of investor cash, the law caps how much of it he's allowed to have. That's the true cost. The true cost of an airline in Canada isn't the planes. It's that you've walked into a business designed by economics and by law to grind a large fortune down into a small one. That's not a joke. It's the actual business model. Now, I know what you're thinking. So it's impossible. Nobody should ever start an airline. And, okay, mostly, yeah, but not entirely. Because here's the honest other side. It can be done. It's just that the people who survive don't do it Bryce's way. They don't try to be a giant overnight. They find one thing the big two don't want to do. A region, a bunch of small northern towns nobody else serves, the routes the big two think are too small to bother with, and they own that little corner, quietly, for years before anybody notices them. They fly out of the cheaper secondary airports where the tolls aren't as brutal. They keep one single type of plane, so the mechanics only learn one machine. They grow slow and boring, and they never ever pick a head-on fight with Air Canada on a route Air Canada cares about. That's how you survive. It's not glamorous, it's not your name in lights, it's grinding out a living in the corners the giants ignore. The ones who chase the baller fantasy, the big splashy national launch, those are the ones in the graveyard. So did Bryce get his airline with his name on the tail? No. Bryce got a very expensive education and a slightly smaller fortune, But Bryce did finally understand the old joke, and now you do too. How do you make a small fortune running an airline in Canada? You start with a large one, you fly it straight into a duopoly, and you wait. Anyway, that's the true cost of owning an airline in Canada. So next time a rich guy announces he's going to start his own airline, you don't even have to say anything. Just ask him how he plans to make $7 a passenger, survive a price war with two giants, and watch the dream leave his eyes in real time. Would you rather own an airline or literally set the money on fire? Which is faster? Let me know in the comments.